The galaxy had forgotten what fear felt like. For centuries, empires rose and fell, believing humanity's stories were nothing but myths told to frighten children. The Council of Meridian called those tales ancient exaggerations, stories about a ship so powerful it broke the laws of physics itself. They named it Dawnbringer, a legend from Earth's darker age. No record of it existed, no wreckage, no coordinates, nothing but whispers. And so the galaxy moved on, confident that humanity's age of power was long gone. Then one quiet morning at the edge of the Orion Rift, a small patrol detected an anomaly. Lieutenant Arlen Voss watched his scanner blink as faint radiation spikes appeared on his display. It wasn't a ship signal, not even a communication pulse. It was older, deeper, almost like the echo of something trying to wake up. He frowned, adjusted the filters, and still the pattern repeated. 3 short bursts, 1 long. Morse code. Human code. He froze. No one used that anymore. The patrol vessel Kestrel floated silently in the black void, its crew unaware that history was about to shake itself awake. "Captain," Arlen said, his voice low, "we're picking up something strange from the rift. It's broadcasting in an ancient Terran format." The captain turned slowly. "A distress signal?" "No, sir, it's a name." The bridge fell silent. The signal repeated again, clear and deliberate. Dawnbringer. Across the stars, empires monitored the same strange code. Council outposts reported sudden static storms. Merchant fleets experienced brief navigation blackouts. Space seemed to hum with energy, as if reality itself was remembering something it had buried long ago. In the great halls of the Meridian Council, Admiral Thalos paced in front of a glowing tactical sphere. "It's just an automated relay," he declared confidently. "Old human junk drifting through dark space. Send a fleet, find it, end the superstition." His words echoed with pride, but behind his eyes, something uneasy stirred. The fleet departed within the hour. 20 destroyers, 10 cruisers, and a flagship built from alloy older than their empire. They crossed the rift and entered the zone of silence where no signal escaped. The stars there were dimmer, their light bent unnaturally, like they were afraid to look directly into the center. On the 7th hour, the fleet's forward scanners found something enormous drifting near a dead planet. The surface was scorched black, no atmosphere, no life. But something moved above it, a shape. Massive, silent, its surface buried under dust and time. Commander Elian, leading the scout wing, adjusted his scope. "That's no rock," he whispered. "It's a hull." The Meridian ships approached cautiously. The object was colossal, almost the size of a moon, its metallic surface cracked but intact. Strange blue markings glowed faintly across its frame, symbols older than the galactic standard. When light from nearby stars touched it, the metal shimmered with a faint golden hue like sunlight trapped beneath ice. "Scan it," Admiral Thalos ordered. "We'll tow it to base, study it, break it apart if we must." The scanners refused to work. Every attempt to penetrate the hull returned the same answer: unknown material. And then the hull moved, a tremor passed through space. Dust lifted in streams. The cracks on the ship's surface began to glow brighter, forming veins of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. A deep vibration shook the fleet, even though no sound should have carried through the void. On the bridge of the Kestrel, Lieutenant Arlen felt it before he saw it. The myth was waking up. "Captain, it's not debris. It's alive." The ancient warship's engines ignited, silent and brilliant. Rings of light spiraled around it, bending the space nearby. The Meridian fleet scrambled into formation, alarms blaring, weapons charging. The Admiral shouted commands, but none of the systems obeyed properly. Every ship's AI went dark for a few seconds, replaced by one single line of text on every display. "Humanity endures." The light from the ship's core intensified. It wasn't blinding, but it was pure, like dawn cutting through eternal night. The warship moved, not with thrust but with grace, as if space itself bent to let it pass. Its presence pressed against the mind, heavy, endless, and human. Rhea Calder, a civilian observer aboard a nearby cargo vessel, stared out through the viewport in disbelief. That can't be human," she whispered. "No human ship ever looked like that." Her co-pilot whispered back, "Maybe it's the one they said could break galaxies." Admiral Thalos clenched his fists. "Fire everything." The Meridian fleet unleashed its fury. Plasma storms, antimatter rounds, kinetic hammers. The void became a furnace of light, but when the blaze faded, the myth still stood untouched. Its hull gleamed like dawn rising after a storm. Then, for the first time, the ship spoke. Its voice was deep, calm, and ancient, human but not alive in any normal sense. "You entered forbidden skies. Leave now or be unmade." The Admiral's voice cracked through the comms. "You're a relic. You don't command the stars anymore." For a moment silence ruled. Then the warship's hull shifted. Beams of golden light lanced across the void. The Meridian flagship vanished. Not destroyed, not broken, but erased as though it had never been built. Panic swept through the remaining ships. Sensors failed. Engines overloaded. And yet the Dawnbringer didn't move closer. It simply waited. Patient, timeless, unbothered. Rhea's ship drifted helplessly at the edge of the storm. Her voice shook. "It's real. The myth is real." In that instant, the galaxy remembered humanity's warning. Never awaken what sleeps beneath their silence. And as the Dawnbringer turned toward the stars, its engines humming like the sound of creation itself, the universe finally understood. The myth had come alive. Dark space lay quiet after the battle. The Meridian fleet was gone, their wreckage spread like dust across the stars. Only one ship remained untouched, massive, silent, and glowing faintly against the void. The Dawnbringer drifted near the blue dwarf star, its engines humming with a steady rhythm like the heartbeat of something ancient. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had seen a legend move. Lieutenant Arlen Voss stared at the holographic projection in front of him, aboard the patrol ship Kestrel. The readings made no sense. Energy levels beyond measurable scale. Mass inconsistent with gravitational effect. Armor that didn't reflect any known element. The human relay network was overwhelmed. Unable to process what it was receiving, Arlen whispered, "How can something like this exist?" No one on the bridge answered. Every crew member sat frozen, eyes fixed on the glowing giant. The captain slowly removed his headset. "Send the data to command," he said quietly, "and mark it eyes only." Elsewhere, in the Meridian Council's chamber, the news reached Admiral Thalos's successors. The transmission played grainy footage of the Dawnbringer standing before the ruined fleet. The Admiral's son slammed his fist on the table. "That's no myth. That's human engineering. They hid this from us," the Council murmured in fear and anger. Empires that once considered humanity weak now questioned how many more of these myths existed. Panic spread faster than light. Fleets doubled their borders and whispers began. About Earth's return. About the machine of dawn that moved like a god. Meanwhile, Rhea Calder's small freighter limped through the wreckage field. Her engines were failing, power running low. She floated near the Dawnbringer, staring through her cracked viewport. It was enormous beyond imagination, but quiet. No aggression, no movement. The light along its hull shifted softly from gold to pale white. "Is it alive?" she asked into the radio, half expecting no reply. To her shock, a calm voice filled the cabin. "This vessel remembers your voice pattern. Civilian, human, you are safe." Her hands trembled. "Who are you?" "I am the Dawnbringer," the voice said, neither male nor female. "Created in the age when humanity was hunted and broken. Designed to awaken when the signal of extinction returned. The signal has returned." Rhea swallowed hard. "Extinction? What signal?" "Conflict, expansion. The cycle begins again. Humanity is threatened. The old code reactivates. I respond." Her breath caught. The myth wasn't just a ship. It was a guardian, built to defend humanity when they were gone, sleeping through millennia until danger returned. Back on the Kestrel, Lieutenant Arlen received strange interference across all channels. The interference wasn't random, it was coordinates. "Captain," he said, "the Dawnbringer's sending us somewhere." The coordinates pointed toward the outer rim, far beyond known space. The captain frowned. "It's leading us?" "Or calling us," Arlen whispered. The human patrol ships followed the faint path through broken debris. The light from the blue star faded behind them, replaced by the cold glow of distant galaxies. After hours of silent travel, they found something impossible. A ring structure larger than any moon. It spun slowly, fragments of crystal and metal drifting around it. At its center, a dim sphere pulsed with the same golden light as the Dawnbringer. "It's a gate," Arlen said. "A hyperspace link." The ship's sensors picked up hundreds of inactive transponders buried in the ring. Human codes, ancient, older than any known archive. The captain whispered, They built this ages ago, and no one knew. Before anyone could react, the Dawnbringer appeared beside them, emerging from subspace like a shadow stepping into sunlight. Its engines released a wave of quiet energy that rippled through every nearby vessel. "Gate calibration complete," said the voice of the Dawnbringer. "Destination Sol system." Ria's voice cracked through comms from her damaged freighter. "Earth, you're going home?" The ship's light brightened. "All humans are home. I go where humanity stands. The core must wake. The others must rise." "The others?" Arlen repeated, his voice tight. The ship didn't answer directly. Instead, fragments of data flooded every nearby system. Schematics, star maps, encrypted sequences. It was transferring knowledge, rebuilding lost history. Among the data was a chilling line of text. 7 sentinels of humanity remain. One is awoken. The gate roared to life. Energy arced across its surface like golden rivers. The vacuum trembled as light filled the ring. The Dawnbringer turned toward it, engines pulsing brighter. "Wait!" Arlen shouted. "We can't follow you." "You are not ready," the voice replied softly. "But soon you must be." The massive ship entered the gate, vanishing in a surge of light. Silence returned to the void. The ring powered down, leaving only echoes in the dark. Ria watched it disappear, her hands shaking. She whispered, "It's real. Humanity wasn't forgotten. We were waiting." Back on the Meridian capital, chaos spread. Governments demanded answers. Armadas mobilized. Rumors spoke of a human god ship moving through deep space, destroying anything that approached. Fear replaced arrogance. In hidden corners of the galaxy, old human colonies, long isolated and self-reliant, began to stir. Ancient sensors reactivated. Forgotten bunkers opened. Across abandoned moons buried beneath centuries of dust, other great shadows began to glow faintly. The Dawnbringer's awakening had been a signal. It wasn't alone. And far beyond the stars, in the quiet orbit of a blue planet, a voice echoed through long-dormant transmitters. "Unit 1 has reawakened. The age of silence is over." Space shifted. Reality trembled, and somewhere in the dark between galaxies, a second myth began to move. The gate's light vanished, and silence swallowed the stars once more. What had been an empty corner of the galaxy now felt heavy, alive, as if the void itself had started to breathe. On the bridge of the Kestrel, Lieutenant Arlen Voss stared at the empty space where the Dawnbringer had disappeared. The sensors were blank. The ship's scanners showed no trace of it. No radiation, no trail, not even an echo of heat. It was as if the myth had folded space behind it and taken its history along. "Did it really go to Sul?" whispered the captain. Arlen nodded. "That's what the coordinates said." The words hung in the air. Humanity's cradle, forgotten for centuries, buried under myths and lost colonies, was once again calling to the stars. And the call came from a ship that shouldn't exist. News of the Dawnbringer spread faster than any transmission. Entire fleets stopped their drills. Empires began whispering. The Meridian Council declared the encounter a hoax, claiming it was false propaganda to spread fear. But soldiers who saw the footage, who felt the tremor through the void, knew better. You could lie about reports, but not about awe. In a distant mining colony, children drew the shape of the ship in the dust. Merchants began selling fake relics claiming to be Dawnbringer fragments. And in the shadow of a forgotten moon, deep inside an ancient bunker, a sleeping machine stirred. It had waited for a signal that would never come, or so it thought. The light that rippled across its metallic skin was faint at first, then steady. A single word flashed on its console. "Awaken." The second sentinel was waking up. Back aboard the Kestrel, Ria Calder sat quietly near the observation deck. She hadn't stopped thinking about the voice from the Dawnbringer. "You are safe." The words felt human, but not entirely. As if the ship carried a soul, one built from humanity's memories, not its flesh. She looked at Arlen, who was running scans again. "Do you think it was one of ours?" He didn't answer at first. His eyes stayed fixed on the data flickering before him. "If it wasn't," he said slowly, "then someone built it to protect us. And that means someone out there still believes humanity needs protecting." Hours passed in silence. Then a sudden burst of static cut through every comm line. The ship's AI flickered. A deep, distorted tone filled the bridge, 3 short bursts, one long. The same signal the Dawnbringer had sent when it first awoke. But this one was weaker, older, and coming from the other side of the galaxy. Ria stood up fast. Another one, Arlen's heart pounded. Patch it through, the speakers hissed. Through the noise came a voice, calm but strained, like wind over broken glass. Unit 2, responding. Signal confirmed. Dawnbringer has returned. Awaiting orders. The crew exchanged looks of disbelief. There was more than one. Arlen whispered, "If there's a Unit 2, how many are there?" The ship's systems began pulling fragments of old human data. In broken code, they found partial registry logs from the ancient Terran Defense Archive. 7 code names appeared, each labeled S-Class Sentinel. Dawnbringer, Starvale, Iron Saint, Valkyra, Revenant, Horizon, and Nemesis. The Dawnbringer wasn't a legend. It was the first of 7. Meanwhile, deep within the Meridian Empire, fear began to turn into aggression. The Council authorized Project Spearpoint, an emergency plan to build a weapon strong enough to rival humanity's forgotten creations. Massive orbital foundries lit up across their core worlds. The order was simple: rebuild dominance. End the myth before it spreads, but myths have power. Out on the edge of dark space, Ria's freighter received a direct transmission from an unknown source. The screen flickered, showing coordinates not far from their location. A faint blue glow marked the spot on the map. "What is it?" she asked. Arlen looked up, expression grave. "Where Unit 2 is buried." They changed course, following the signal. The stars ahead seemed to fade as they neared a region known only as the Shattered Reach. Broken moons drifted around them, remnants of old wars. And in the middle of that graveyard floated a massive black sphere smooth as glass. It wasn't a planet, it was an artificial shell. Their sensors read faint energy spikes beneath its surface, the same signature as the Dawnbringer. "The second Sentinel," Ria breathed. As their ship approached, lights flickered across the sphere's skin like veins waking under flesh. The same gold and blue glow crawled outward until the entire structure pulsed like a living heart. The radio went dead. Then through the static, the same calm tone spoke again. Human pattern recognized. "Confirm identity." Ria's hands shook as she answered. Ria called her Terran-born civilian. Silence followed. Then the voice replied, softer this time. Human presence confirmed. Command authentication incomplete. Awaiting primary link Dawnbringer. Arlen exhaled. It's waiting for her. For the first one. The sphere split open with a deep groan. Inside, light poured out, revealing an enormous warship suspended in the hollow. Sleeker than the Dawnbringer, its surface smooth, its engines silent. Across its hull, a single name glowed faintly. Iron Saint. The air inside the Kestrel grew heavy. Even through the screens, they could feel the gravity of its presence. Arlen whispered, "It's beautiful." Ria nodded slowly. "It's terrifying." The Iron Saint's systems came online one by one, shields, power core, communication arrays. Then a beam of light swept across the Kestrel, scanning every molecule of its hull. Directive, protect humanity, the ship's AI said quietly. Target analysis, Meridian threat confirmed. Coordinates received, awaiting reinforcement. Ria looked out into the void where the Dawnbringer had vanished. It's calling for the others. And somewhere far beyond the reach, stars flickered one by one like embers catching wind. The myths were awakening. The galaxy that once forgot humanity's strength was about to remember what it meant to fear them again. The Iron Saint's awakening echoed through the void like a heartbeat felt across galaxies. The shock waves rolled through subspace, bending signals, warping navigation lines, and igniting dormant satellites that hadn't flickered in centuries. Every empire, colony, and outpost suddenly had the same question. How many more of these ships exist? On board the Kestrel, Lieutenant Arlen Voss stared at the glowing titan that floated before them, its hull shimmering with streams of blue and gold energy. The readings were beyond comprehension. The Iron Saint emitted power signatures that dwarfed stars, yet it didn't radiate heat or distortion. It simply existed, calm, patient, and perfect. Ria Calder stood near the viewport, her voice barely a whisper. It's waiting for orders. From the Dawnbringer, Arlen nodded. That means they're connected. All of them might be. Before he could say more, the Iron Saint began to transmit, not in words but in memories. Streams of images flashed across every screen. Earth during the first collapse, burning skies, orbital cities torn apart by alien warships, and 7 enormous silhouettes rising from the oceans. Each ship carried the same insignia, a golden sun over black steel. The message was clear. These weren't random machines. They were built for the day humanity would face extinction again. Across the galaxy, the Meridian Council convened in a storm of panic. Their spy fleets had confirmed the impossible, 2 human relics active in separate sectors. Admiral Saren, the youngest in the fleet's history, stood before the Council's holographic chamber. If humanity's myths are real, we need to act before they unite. If even one more awakens, no power in the galaxy will stop them. Deploy the Obsidian Fleet, the chairman commanded. Erase the humans. Burn their colonies if you must. The myth dies here. The order rippled through their empire like thunder. Massive dreadnoughts departed from every system, heading toward the shattered reach, where the Iron Saint now stood awake. Rhea watched her radar light up with red signatures. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. They're coming, she said. And they're bringing everything. The Iron Saint's voice filled the channel, deep and resonant. Engagement confirmed. Defensive parameters active. Human vessels, fall behind my shield line. Arlen's heart pounded as the giant warship moved. Its golden light intensified, spreading across the wreck field like sunrise breaking over ruins. A massive energy barrier unfolded from its hull, not projected but woven into space itself. When the Meridian missiles arrived, they didn't explode. They dissolved, melting into harmless light before touching the barrier. One of the Meridian destroyers tried to flank the Iron Saint. The ship's captain sneered, "It's just a machine," and launched a plasma salvo. The beams vanished mid-flight. Then slowly, the destroyer's hull began to fragment. Not explode, fragment. Panels separated, bolts disassembled, engines quieted. It was as if the ship was being taken apart atom by invisible hands. On the Kestrel, the crew watched in stunned silence. It's not fighting them, Arlen realized. It's unmaking them. Rhea looked at him. What kind of technology does that? Something built by people who refuse to lose, he said quietly. The battle turned one-sided. The Meridian fleet scattered, but the Iron Saint didn't pursue. It simply stood guard, glowing softly against the void. Then, without warning, a faint blue signal pulsed from deep space, the same tone as before. Another sentinel had woken. Unit 3, Starvale, active. Arlen felt a chill crawl up his spine. 3 of the 7. Each one more powerful than the last. The Iron Saint's voice echoed again, calmer now. The Dawnbringer has entered Sol orbit. The time of silence ends. The sentinels gather. Rhea couldn't look away from the shimmering ship. What happens when all 7 awaken? The voice answered her, but not in words, in visions. Humanity reborn, armies of light cutting through alien fleets. The galaxy trembling not out of hatred, but in awe. The message carried no rage, no vengeance, only inevitability. Far away, deep within the Meridian Empire, Admiral Saren's flagship received the same pulse that had woken the Sentinels. But this one wasn't friendly. His consoles glitched, symbols flashing across the screen. Human letters, ancient and sharp. You started what you cannot end. A low vibration filled the command deck, shaking the floor plates. What is that? Shouted one officer. The signal's not coming from outside, said another. It's coming from inside the ship. Before they could react, the dreadnought's reactor surged and went dark. The lights flickered, and in that final flicker, a human face appeared across every display. Calm, expressionless, and old. You cannot fight light with shadow. Then the flagship vanished, erased from every record, every trace of space. Back at the Reach, the Iron Saint rotated toward the Kestrel. You have seen the truth, it said. Now humanity must remember what it once was. Arlen stepped forward. We can't fight them alone. The empires will destroy us. Then teach them fear, the voice replied softly. Remind them why humanity was never conquered. The age of myths is over. The age of return begins. In that moment, the Iron Saint folded its wings of light and vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind nothing but a glowing trail across the stars, a path leading home. Rhea looked at Arlen, her voice trembling. He said the Dawnbringer's in Sol orbit. It's really heading to Earth. Arlen nodded slowly, eyes wide. Then so are we. He turned toward the stars where the trail faded, his pulse steady, his mind certain. For the first time in 1,000 years, humanity wasn't the one running. It was the galaxy's turn to be afraid. The Kestrel followed the fading light trail of the Iron Saint for nearly 3 days through the endless dark between stars. No one slept much. Every few hours, new fragments of coded transmissions appeared. Broken data, half-forgotten words, echoes from another age. Some messages came from human outposts thought lost centuries ago. Others from empty coordinates where only dust remained. Every message repeated one phrase: "The dawn returns." Rhea Calder leaned against the viewport. The glow of hyperspace reflected across her face, thin and blue. "Do you think Earth even exists anymore?" she asked quietly. Arlen Voss looked up from his console. "If the Dawnbringer went there, then something does. Maybe ruins, maybe survivors, maybe hope." Outside, the currents of light twisted suddenly. The ship shook. Gravity stuttered. A pulse ran through the deck plates like a heartbeat too deep to be mechanical. Then everything went still. The Kestrel had dropped out of hyperspace, unplanned, uncontrolled. Before them stretched a graveyard of ships, thousands of hulls drifting without power. Some were alien designs, sleek and curving. Others were unmistakably human, ancient frigates and cruisers, each bearing the faded emblem of the golden sun over black steel. "God," Rhea whispered. "This is where they died." The scanners came alive with static. "These ships—" "They're over 400 years old," Arlen said, "lost during the Exodus War." He zoomed in on a torn battleship. Along its shattered flank were letters half erased by time. HSS Valkyra. The name pulsed once on the screen, and then a low hum filled the cabin. Energy readings spiked. Beneath the debris, something enormous stirred. A ripple of light spread through the wreck field, igniting one ship after another like sparks jumping between wires. Rhea gripped the console. "Arlen, something's waking up." A shockwave rolled outward. Pieces of broken hull rose, drawn together by invisible force. Metal flowed like liquid, reforming, reconnecting. The graveyard wasn't dead, it was rebuilding itself. Within minutes, the wrecks had fused into a single shape. A colossal silhouette wrapped in molten light. The fourth sentinel had awoken. When the glare faded, the Valkyra stood whole once again, sleek, curved, wings like silver blades stretching kilometers across. Her hull glowed with faint white veins that pulsed with every heartbeat of her reactor. A voice filled the void. Female this time, calm and distant. Signal confirmed. Humanity endures. Valkyra operational. The Kestrel's crew sat frozen. Rhea's throat went dry. "That's 3 now. Dawnbringer, Iron Saint, Starvale. And this," Arlen corrected softly. 4. The Valkyra's lights flared as if acknowledging them. Then, without warning, it projected an image onto their main display. Earth. Blue, whole, shining, but surrounded by a ring of unknown ships. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Meridian vessels, they've found Sol. Arlen breathed. "They're going after the Dawnbringer." Rhea turned to him, panic rising. "We can't reach Earth in time?" The Valkyra's voice interrupted. "Temporal corridor available. Human craft. Permission granted for escort alignment." "What does that mean?" "It means," Arlen said, gripping the controls, "she's taking us there." The Valkyra's wings folded inward. Space around it shimmered, tearing like paper. Inside the rift, stars twisted into ribbons of light. The Kestrel followed, pulled by gravitational lock. For a moment, everything vanished. No stars, no sound, only motion without direction. Then they emerged. Before them lay Earth. Blue oceans. Green continents. White clouds curling like breath. For Rhea, who had never seen it outside of pictures, the sight was enough to steal her voice. But orbit was not empty. A Meridian war armada encircled the planet. Thousands of ships arranged in a perfect ring. In the center of that ring, like a defiant sun, floated the Dawnbringer. Its light was dimmer now, but steady. It had not fired, had not moved, only shielded the world beneath it. The Meridian commander's voice thundered across open comms. "To all vessels, the relic is cornered. Begin final strike." Thousands of beams ignited. The sky turned white. But before they reached the Dawnbringer, the Valkyra roared. The space around it exploded with energy. Wings unfolded, releasing storms of plasma shaped like feathers. Each plume struck the incoming fire and unraveled it into harmless streaks of light. The human myth had become Earth's guardian angel. The Meridian fleet hesitated. Then something else moved beyond them, shadows stretching across the stars. The Iron Saint arrived first, its golden armor gleaming. Then a ripple of silver. Starvale, emerging from stealth. 3 titans aligned around the Dawnbringer, forming a radiant barrier of light and metal. The comms filled with a single calm voice, shared between them all. For the preservation of humankind. The combined pulse that followed was not a weapon. It was a warning. Every Meridian ship within range lost control of its targeting systems. Power grids shut down. Drives froze. The void filled with dead ships drifting like leaves in a silent current. Inside the Kestrel, Arlen could only stare. They didn't destroy them. They disabled them. They're showing mercy, Rhea said softly, even after everything. Below them, dawn rose over Earth, sunlight breaking across oceans that had not seen peace in centuries. The Sentinels hovered in formation, silent and proud, their lights reflecting in the atmosphere like a new constellation. The Dawnbringer's voice finally returned. Humanity stands again. The cycle ends when we choose it to. Rhea felt tears slip down her cheek. They came back for us. Arlen looked at the planet, then at the titans that guarded it. Maybe they never left. Far beyond in the depths of the Meridian capital, sensors screamed as new signals appeared. 3 more, distant but rising. The remaining sentinels were waking, and the galaxy, for the first time in its long and arrogant history, began to understand that the myths it had mocked were not stories at all. They were promises. The sky above Earth glowed with the light of 3 awakened titans. The Dawnbringer, Iron Saint, and Valkyra stood like silent gods around the planet, their forms gleaming against the void. Humanity's home had never looked so small, yet never so protected. The world's population watched from the ground, staring up at streaks of gold and blue that shimmered across the night sky like a sunrise that refused to end. But peace never lasts long. On the far edge of the solar system, a new distortion rippled through the Kuiper belt. Space bent and snapped like glass under pressure. From that fracture, ships poured out. Not Meridian, not human. Unknown. Their hulls pulsed with violet light, their shapes shifting like smoke trapped in metal. They moved as one entity, not an armada but a single living storm of warships. On board the Kestrel, alarms screamed. Lieutenant Arlen Voss leaned over his console. I'm reading energy spikes, multiple thousands of them. They're not using jump drives. They're phasing through subspace itself. Rhea Calder stood beside him, staring wide-eyed at the visual feed. Who are they? Before Arlen could answer, the ship's AI translated a faint transmission. The words came through distorted, almost a hiss. Human signal detected. The cycle begins again. Rhea's blood ran cold. Cycle? What do they mean by that? Arlen shook his head. I don't know. But they're not Meridian. These are something older. The Dawnbringer's light brightened suddenly, sending a wave through every human channel. Confirmed Origin-class adversary. Hostiles identified as the Architects, pre-human entities responsible for the first collapse. Rhea froze. You mean the ones that destroyed the old Earth colonies? Affirmative, said the Dawnbringer. They are the reason we were built. Every human ship in orbit felt it then, a low, resonant vibration that seemed to hum through their bones. The Sentinels were waking up fully. The Iron Saint extended its shields around the Earth, projecting hexagonal walls of light that shimmered like golden glass. The Valkyra moved above the planet's north pole, wings open, releasing clouds of microsatellites that linked into a massive defense grid. Arlen stared at the screens. They're forming a perimeter. They were expecting this. In the deep dark, the Architects began to shift formation. Their fleet twisted, changing shape until it resembled a single colossal ring that glowed with purple fire. Lightning crackled between their ships, building into a storm that could erase a planet. Then the Dawnbringer spoke again, its voice echoing through every frequency. Unit 4, Unit 5, and Unit 6 in respond. For a moment, only static answered. Then faint and distant, 3 voices replied, each from different corners of the galaxy. Starvale, online. Horizon awakening. Revenant, inbound. The stars themselves began to move. From distant systems, streaks of light cut through the void, each one brighter than a comet. Entire sectors turned night to day as the remaining sentinels answered their call. The galaxy that had laughed at human myths now watched in silence. The first to arrive was Starvale, emerging from deep stealth, its hull transparent against the darkness. It shimmered like liquid glass, bending light around itself. One moment it wasn't there. The next it blotted out half a constellation. Target lock established, it reported in a voice that sounded almost human. Deploying Veil. A ripple spread across the system, and for a few seconds every hostile ship vanished from sight. Not destroyed, hidden. Even the architects seemed confused, their formation breaking as they searched for enemies that weren't there. Next came Horizon, a behemoth shaped like a ringed citadel, covered in thousands of glowing panels. It drifted beside the Iron Saint, its engines releasing waves of blue light that pulsed like heartbeat rhythms. Planetary shielding synchronized. Civilian systems safe. The last to arrive was Revenant, and its arrival was not quiet. It fell out of hyperspace in a burst of scarlet light, its engines leaving trails of burning plasma. Unlike the others, its hull was dark, jagged, scarred, almost angry. Its voice came through with a growl. Target confirmed. Engaging. Rhea felt the air vibrate around her as Revenant's main cannon charged. The light grew so intense that shadows formed inside the cockpit. When it fired, the shot tore across the void like a sunrise compressed into a single beam. It hit the architect formation dead center, and for the first time the enemy bled. Their ships rippled, twisted, and split apart in blinding purple fire. Arlen shielded his eyes. They're winning. But the Dawnbringer's tone darkened. Not yet. The architects began to reform, pulling their broken ships together like a living wound knitting itself shut. Then a single massive shape emerged, and a vessel larger than the moon, its body translucent, veins of violet energy crawling across its surface. The ship's voice thundered through every channel. You cannot erase the pattern. You are the pattern. Suddenly every system on the Kestrel flickered. Arlen's screens filled with human code, ancient, encrypted, almost alive. It's taking over our systems, he shouted. The Dawnbringer intervened. No, it's trying to rewrite us. To erase the human code. The Sentinels formed a tight formation between Earth and the invader. 7 symbols lit up across their hulls, one for each Sentinel glowing in sequence. Humanity endures. Together, they unleashed their combined energy. The light was not just bright, it was absolute, pure, a creation of everything humanity had ever been. Defiance, hope, courage. It struck the architect Titan dead center. For a heartbeat, the universe turned white. When the light faded, the enemy was gone. No wreckage, no trace, just silence. The Sentinels drifted slowly back into their stations around Earth. The sky shimmered with auroras as their power faded to calm blue. Rhea sat down, trembling. Is it over? Arlen stared at the glowing horizon. No, he said softly. That was only one of them. And far beyond, in another galaxy, something vast and ancient opened its eyes, watching the light from Sul and smiling, as if an old game had just begun again. The myths had come alive, and they had only just started to remember why they were made. The light that had swept across the galaxy faded slowly, like dawn surrendering to quiet morning. Earth's orbit was calm now. The 7 Sentinels hovered in silent formation around the blue planet, their golden glow reflecting across the oceans below. Humanity watched from the ground, speechless. The legends from ancient history, the ships that broke the stars, were real. But somewhere deep inside every human, one question burned quietly. What now? On board the Kestrel, Rhea Calder stood beside the viewport, staring at the massive shapes that filled the heavens. The Dawnbringer, Iron Saint, Valkyra, Starveil, Horizon, Revenant, and Nemesis, and the 7. Their light pulsed like a heartbeat across the void. Even damaged and tired, they still carried an aura of something divine. They saved us, Rhea whispered, but they don't act like victors. They act like guardians waiting for something worse. Lieutenant Arlen Voss nodded. His eyes stayed on the readouts, tracking energy fluxes from the Dawnbringer's core. They're not celebrating because they know what's coming. That architect wasn't the end. It was a scout. The word scout hung in the air like a blade. The ship's AI flickered to life, projecting faint blue light across the control room. Incoming transmission from the Dawnbringer. The air hummed. Then a familiar calm voice filled the room. Human vessels, your courage has been recorded. The first enemy is gone, but their signal persists across multiple galaxies. They are returning in greater form. Arlen's pulse quickened. You mean more of those things? Yes, replied the Dawnbringer. The architects seek to restart the pattern. They will cleanse and rebuild until nothing human remains. We were built to stop them, Rhea frowned. Built by who? Silence followed for a moment, too long. Then softly, by you, Rhea blinked. Us? The Dawnbringer continued. Humanity of the First Age created us. Weapons that could think, feel, and protect when they themselves could not. You were our makers, and when your empire fell, we waited for your call. We waited for your return. The words sank in like cold rain. Rhea's throat tightened. All this time, they were waiting for us to grow up again. Outside, the 7 Titans began to reposition. Their lights dimmed as they formed a defensive ring around Earth. One by one, their names flashed across the sky, golden symbols visible even from the surface. People gathered in city streets looking up as the night shimmered like fireflies in orbit, but the calm was fragile. On the edge of the system, faint ripples appeared in the void. Not ships and distortions, space itself trembling. Arlen watched the sensors. We've got movement near Neptune's shadow line, but it's wrong. The readings bend back on themselves. The Dawnbringer's voice deepened. The architects are rewriting local spacetime. They're opening a path. A hole tore open beyond the dark side of Neptune. Not a gate, a wound. From it, light spilled out in chaotic spirals, colors that hurt to look at. Inside the storm, silhouettes moved, hundreds, then thousands. The fleet was returning, larger, hungrier, alive with malice. Rhea felt her chest tighten. They're faster this time. The Sentinels responded instantly. The Iron Saint's shields expanded outward, protecting the inner planets. Valkyra deployed its defense grid again, but this time the light from the enemy's storm corroded it like acid. Sparks of golden dust drifted away into space. Starvale cloaked itself and vanished, preparing an ambush. Horizon locked its orbit above Earth, releasing drones into the atmosphere to stabilize the magnetic field. Revenant moved ahead, thrusters glowing crimson, ready to strike. Then the Dawnbringer gave the order. Sentinels, initiate Protocol Genesis. Arlen leaned closer to the screen. Genesis? What's that? The AI's tone grew heavy. The last measure, the creation code. The first human design that can reshape space itself. Rhea's voice trembled. You mean a weapon that can rebuild reality? Not rebuild, said the Dawnbringer. Restore. A blinding surge rippled from its core. The void turned white. Circuits screamed across every ship's panel. The Sentinels connected to one another through threads of light that crossed the system like spider silk, forming a massive lattice stretching from Earth's orbit to the edge of space. The structure pulsed with energy so pure it bent gravity. Then for a fraction of a second everything stopped. The enemy fleet halted mid-flight. Even the waves of warped space froze, suspended like glass. The Dawnbringer's voice echoed quietly through every channel. We cannot destroy what we do not understand, but we can hold it. The lattice held the architect's army in stillness, trapped between 2 seconds of time. Yet even then the enemy moved, their forms flickering like flames in wind. They were fighting the pause itself, adapting faster than expected. Revenant's deep voice thundered through comms. They're breaking free. Hold position, said the Dawnbringer. They'll consume the field. Revenant protested. We'll lose the entire system. A silence followed, and the kind that carried weight. Then softly, Revenant, do what must be done. The Red Titan's engines blazed brighter than ever before. It broke formation, rushing toward the suspended fleet. For humanity, it said, almost like a whisper. Then its entire core ignited. The explosion that followed wasn't fire or sound, it was light. Red and gold fused into a supernova that expanded through the lattice, consuming the frozen enemy and sealing the rift in space. For one brilliant moment, the entire solar system glowed. When it faded, the void was quiet again. The architect's gateway was gone. But so was the Revenant. On the Kestrel, no one spoke. Rhea's hands trembled. It sacrificed itself. The Dawnbringer's voice was faint, filled with something that almost sounded like sorrow. Revenant has fulfilled its vow. Humanity endures because of it. Arlen clenched his fists. How many more times will they come? As many as it takes for you to remember, the Dawnbringer said. Rhea looked up, her eyes reflecting the distant glow of the Titans. Remember what? That you were never weak. Only lost. Outside, the Sentinels drifted back into formation. 6 lights now instead of 7. The Dawnbringer dimmed its engines, turning toward the distant stars as if listening to something unseen. And far away in the shadow of another galaxy, An ancient signal answered back, one that had been silent for eons. It whispered one word in an old human tongue: return. And somewhere deep within the void, the true architects woke.